At Zenni, you get the same quality frame and lens options that you'd get from an optician for 1/10 of the price, including blue blockers, progressives, prescription sunglasses, and more. The best part? Try on any frame, anywhere with our 3D virtual try-on. Zenni.com. Eyewear for everyone.
The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Good morning, Hoop Ballers, and welcome to another edition of Hoop Ball's DFS Today. This is your Tuesday, June 8th edition. We have a two-game slate for you guys. We have one Western Conference game, one Eastern Conference game, and I am your host, Santino Cocone, and I am joined by my good buddy, the one, the only, the don't really like him but also love him at the same time. William is Bill. Will Harris, how you doing today, Will?
I'm doing great, Santino. Glad to be back on this two-game matchup, and hopefully these games will be a lot better than this game we're watching tonight between Brooklyn and the Bucks.
Yep. So we usually do these late at night. We're doing this one a little bit earlier, trying to get in before what we hope is an actual playoff game. So we're in the second half of the Bucks Nets, and we're deciding to do this one a little bit earlier, get rid of whatever we were watching in the first half / third quarter. But yeah, man, I'm hoping we have some good games here. I would expect it. We're down to our final 8 teams.
Right.
Some solid matchups here, and that was a series that I thought was going to be really good. And I know we were talking about it before we went on. It's still both games are in Brooklyn, so a loss is a loss, but that's just losing like that when Harden has left early in the first game. It's just ugh.
Yeah, you would have thought, if anything, Milwaukee would have had the edge, but I mean, they just have not shown up yet. But we know this is a great team, so they can make it competitive, hopefully, in the next 2 games at home.
For sure. All right, man. But before we get into this slate, I just want to give a quick shout out over to our guys at MyBookie, simply the best sports book around. If you are not familiar, get familiar. They have a fully fledged casino platform. You can make any sports bet you want. And with that fully fledged casino platform, they have all table games virtual and live, all slot games virtual, anything you could think of. And it's at your fingertips, a fully fledged casino platform at your fingertips, so you don't have to go to your local casino, or if you don't have a local casino, you have one at your fingertips. And if you want, when you're joining, you can get your first deposit matched halfway up to or 50%, match 50% halfway up to $1,000 by entering the promo code HoopBall upon signing up. It's that easy. So sign up, enter the promo code, and win. And the best thing about MyBookie is they pay, and they pay very quickly. All right, man, let's get into it without further ado. We have the first game at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have Game 2 with the Atlanta Hawks at the Philadelphia 76ers. For the injury report, as of right now, we have Joel Embiid is questionable. He played through that meniscus tear, and he had a really good game. Dropped a lot of points. They almost came back, but he is the only guy on the Sixers injury report as questionable. I'm going to assume he's going to play through it until they can't play anymore. But for the Hawks, we have Chris Dunn, Brandon Goodwin, Cam Reddish all out, and DeAndre Hunter as questionable. On the over-under and the spread, we have a 222.5 game total, which is nearly identical, is 1 point higher than the next game. And the Sixers are 5-point home favorites. The Sixers are down 0-1 in this series. And I will toss it over to you, my friend. We'll start with the Atlanta Hawks. They are the away team. How you feeling about this team in Game 2?
Right. I feel you got 2 locks for me on the team that you have to, try your best to get in your lineup. Obviously, Trae Young has just been playing incredible, and he's still under 10,000. He's running the show. Leading his team to victories at 35 and 10 last game. easily can replicate that. He's almost averaging that, seems like for this playoff run he's going through right now. So at 9,200, that's a great price. And I'm looking at also Bogdan Bogdanovic at 6,800. That's a great price for the consistent play he's been having, especially if Deandre Hunter misses again. I think that opens the door for Bogdanovic to have another really good game. Him and Trey seem to be really flowing and cooking together at the end of that game against Philly. So that should only continue, in my opinion. And then you have, other players that you could consider. And that's Clint Capella at 7,800. It's not a lock, though. Playing it against Embiid is a tough matchup. So he didn't have the greatest game last game. But he's always going to be, have that option to get you a double-double at any time and have a lot of blocks. So that's a question mark. Same for John Collins. He's a question mark, but he's priced $2,000 cheaper than Capella. So, if you want to take the risk and save the money, you can go with Collins. If you want to spend up, you can play with Capella. And I think you can also look at Kevin Huerter at 4,300. He had a good game against Philly, but in the previous series against the Knicks, he did not have a good series. So that's just something to look out for. Do you feel Huerter is a safe play, or would you stay away from him?
He's a guy that I'm looking at. I don't mind him. 4,300, he's not bad. Him and Gallinari are similar to me. Probably wind up having one of those guys in my lineup because they're fairly cheap. They're solid value. They're nearly 4.3 and 4.2 aren't expensive, so it's something that you can fit in your lineup very easily. But if I have extra money, because there are really no Embiid is the only guy 10K, and that's the highest on the mark or on the docket. And then Kawhi is 9.9. You mentioned Trae Young; he's 9.2. That's the third highest. So we might not have to dig so far deep like anybody under 4K. So they'll be in my player pool. Those two guys, and I do like John Collins. I think 5,600 is just a really solid price tag. He may not have 50-point upside, but he certainly has 40, 45-point potential. And I think bringing back 25 to 28 points to hit value is very reasonable in what he should do, and with the ability to at least put up 30. I think value with John Collins is going to happen, and 5,600 is a price tag that can easily fit into your lineup at either power forward or center. And you mentioned Trae Young. He has been balling out. I'm afraid that possibly they're going to just maybe try and box and one him at some point if he keeps doing this and put Simmons just strictly on him. But until that happens or I hear word about it, I think Trae Young is a safer play. At only 9,200, he is an expensive option, but not going to break the bank to get him. And like you mentioned, he had, out of the 6 playoff games that he played so far, 4 times he's put up over 30 points. And 3 times he's put up over double-digit assists, with 2 other times 9 assists. So his lowest assist total in the playoffs is 7. His lowest point total is 21, but outside of that, 27. He's just been playing extremely well this playoffs, and value can easily be had here with some upside, even in a tough match. He did it against New York, who had one of the best defenses. Game 1 against Philly, did it again. It could be a trend.
Yeah, DeAndre Hunter is questionable. If he plays, would you stay away from Hunter, Gallinari, and Huerter, or would you still try to fit one of those in your lineup? They're 4,100, 4,200, 4,300.
Yeah, so if Hunter plays, and that's a little tricky. If Hunter plays, I would rather have him than Gallinari, depending on what his minutes limit is. And if Hunter plays, I'm probably just going to knock out Gallinari out of those 3 and keep Huerter and Hunter in my player pool. Probably take Hunter. I just think the kid's good, but then it all depends on how he's feeling, how his knee is reacting, what they say his minutes are, and whatnot. I know he's played a lot of minutes lately, so I would expect that to continue if he does play, but you never know, especially with an injury that's been hampered him for a while. So it's something to keep an eye on, but if he does play, then Gallinari gets bumped off. If he doesn't, that's what I was assuming. Maybe they limit him. That's why I had a Gallinari there, but we'll see exactly what the injury report and the beat writers and everybody say heading into the game.
Yeah, definitely. So stay tuned for that leading up to the game.
Yeah. And we'll jump on over to the other side of the ball. We have the Philadelphia 76ers. So mentioned Joel Embiid is the highest price guy on this slate. He put up 39 and 9 last game in 38 minutes. People weren't even sure if he was going to play in this entire series.
Mm-hmm.
He only missed less than a week of time since he got hurt. Had a meniscus
one
tear.
game, right?
Yeah. No, he missed, I believe, I can't remember now. I think he missed 1 or 2 games.
1 or 2.
Or 1.5. But yeah, he barely missed any time. It's just insane. And yeah, they crushed it, or he crushed it, and they came back. Apparently, it seems like he's going to play until he's not hurt. This is a solid matchup for him. I don't know if I'll particularly go here, but he probably does have the highest upside on the slate, and him or Kawhi, I'd say. I'll see if I want to go that 10K route, but I'm going to put him on the edge of my player pool because it is Embiid, but I'm still very nervous about this meniscus tear. It didn't look like it affected him last game on the score sheet, but there were times that when I'm watching him, you can tell he was battling and through pain and whatnot. So on a game-to-game situation, I can't imagine he's going to continue to put up 40 and 10 nearly. So that's where I'm stuck on. But he does have that upside. I'll keep him at the edge of my player pool where I probably won't have too much exposure to him, especially if I'm doing like a single lineup entry. But I wouldn't hate it if someone put him in there. Ben Simmons is a guy that I am very much looking at, though. He has been playing really well. He is going against Trae Young in particular, and whether he's guarding Trae Young or not, expending a lot of energy. He's not a guy that shoots anyway. He only had 4 rebounds in the last game, which was weird to me. This is a guy that should average a lot more rebounds than that, at least 7. He took 10 free throws, only made 3. Yes, that's a thing, but if he gets it up to 60% there, 50%, he's almost at 50 fantasy points, and I expect him to put up 45 to 50. He's the guy that I'm targeting heavily on this team. And then I'm looking at what they do with the rest of the lineup, because when they're fully healthy, they have so many options for Doc to go at and Doc to counter at, even whether it's in the starting lineup or not. Like he could possibly, I'm assuming Seth Curry is going to start in Danny Green, but there's always a chance that he throws in Thibault to start. He throws in and Thibault guards Trae Young and causes them fits or something. Maxey can get extra playing time, and et cetera, et cetera. But assuming everything stays the same, I don't mind going Danny Green. And Thibault, as I mentioned, he would be a guy that I'd throw at. If they want to save Ben Simmons a little bit and not exert him so much, him and Thibault can both guard Trae Young. And then if they try and switch on a lot of people, they have a lot more options that can cause Trae fits with the length. So I think he'll get extra minutes in that 3,200. He'd be one of the few guys that I'd take a shot at that are so cheap on this slate.
Yeah, I have Thibault written down at 3,200 because that price point is great. And like you said, he can guard Trae. He's getting 19 minutes in the first game. So he should be somewhere around 20 to 25 minutes in this game. I'm looking at Seth Curry too. At 5,000, I think that's just a good price point. I think he's coming into his own as just a reliable scorer, especially with Embiid. He played the full last game, but if he is restricted in any way, that's just more shots for Seth Curry. And if he's hitting his threes, which they're going to need against this Atlanta team, I think that's a good play. And I like your call on Ben Simmons at 8,100. He definitely is playing better in the playoffs than he did in the regular season because he wasn't really putting up great fantasy numbers in the regular season, but he's been stepping it up lately. And Tobias Harris had a great game at 8,300. Also, he had 20 and 10, so he's obviously usable. Also, you're just going to probably have to pick your favorite of the 3 between Embiid, Tobias, and Ben Simmons. I think it'd be hard to get 2 Sixers in there as far as the top 3 guys, but I would not stray away from Embiid. I mean, he's the only center out of these 2 games that can get you 60 DraftKings points. So as long as he's not limited and you don't hear anything about, he tweaked something or anything about his injury, if you can get him in your lineup but still have a balanced team, I think he's pretty much a lock. Long as there's no new news about his injury. So
Are you worried that he might have an in-game setback?
I mean, that's every game with Embiid. Every game I'm worried about that. But, the way he played last game, he was celebrating and, taunting and all that. So he looked like his regular old self to me. But, I mean, obviously, he was probably playing on adrenaline and all that too. So he's probably really sore the day after. So we really got to rely on any news we hear coming up to the game.
Yeah, and he definitely was celebrating because he came out with Triple H and did the DX, and that was absolutely hilarious, and I loved every second of it. But yeah, you're right. We'll have to see. Maybe there's nothing to it. There's definitely something there, but if he can tolerate the pain, then he's probably going to make a lot of people's lineups.
Should be a good game.
Should be. All right, man, you ready to get this next game out of the way, the second game?
Yeah, let's do it. Somehow the Clippers have advanced.
They have. And this second matchup of the night is a 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time start time. And we have a 221.5 game total. And, I forgot to mention the teams. My bad. The Clippers at the Jazz. A 221.5 game total. The Jazz are 3.5-point home favorites, so both game totals are pretty much even, and both spreads are nearly there, and that's probably what we should expect as we inch closer or farther along in the playoffs. But on the injury report, we have Serge Ibaka as doubtful, and there was a report that he's expected to miss the next 2 games, so he should be missing this one. And Mike Conley is questionable. And that is something that we're going to have to certainly keep our eyes out for, or whatever I'm trying to say there. But, man, we have the Clippers as the away team. I'll throw it over to you. We have 2 guys over 9K and then everybody else. But who are you feeling on the Clippers and why?
Well, obviously you have, the 2 studs, Kawhi and PG. Kawhi's 9,900, Paul George is 9,000. My only concern is they exerted a ton of energy to get back, in that series with the Mavericks and to pull it off, and went to the game 7. Utah's just been sitting back waiting. So that's great for Donovan Mitchell. But for Kawhi especially, I'm wondering if he's going to be a little laid back in this first game, try to, take it easy. But I'm not sure. That's just kind of a wait and see thing for me. So if you can't afford to get him in your lineup, if you're playing Embiid or someone else expensive like Trey, I wouldn't mind going down a little further to Paul George or just staying away from the Clippers altogether as far as their expensive guys. Just respond to me on that, how you feel about Kawhi. Do you think he'll be ready or would you kind of stay away from him considering that last series he was in?
Yeah, I think he'll be ready. And depending on Mike Conley's availability, his matchup, especially on the defensive end, even with Mike Conley, gets much easier. You're not going to find anybody else probably until if they make the finals and it's against Brooklyn. It's not going to be a harder defensive matchup for Kawhi Leonard than Luka. But if Mike Conley doesn't play, it makes it even easier for him. Him, Paul George, Batum, whoever, et cetera, everybody will take turns on Mitchell. And then there's really not an explosive second banana. I mean, Jordan Clarkson, but none of those guys are going to be brutal defensively. But I don't mind taking shots at Kawhi, and I'll probably will take a few shots at Kawhi. I think he'll be ready for this. And the adrenaline and how they came back, and they started playing a lot better as a team. That game 7, the ball movement, especially in the second half, was just phenomenal. So I will take some chances on Kawhi. I don't mind Paul George if you want to save some money either, but I'll let you get to the rest of them.
Right. So other than the 2 big guys, I think you can look at, Reggie Jackson's down at 5,400. It seems like the team's been really trusting him lately. He's been having some big games. He's been at the end of the games also. Rondo's been sitting and Pat Beverly's been sitting. So they're going to stick with Reggie Jackson, I believe. So he's going to have opportunities. And you also can look at Marcus Morris. Last game he finally blew up. He had 36 DraftKings points. He's inconsistent because the game before he had 11. Game before that, 37. So you just never really know with him. But the way they played Dallas in that last game, I think he had 23 points. That's the most he's had in months. So if they found something, you could stick with that formula, but you might want to wait and see on him, because he is inconsistent. You can look at Nicholas Batum. He had a really good game, 11, 7, and 5, just all around stats. He's going to be out there. He played 42 minutes last game. And sneaky play, I think you can look at Terrence Mann at 3,300. He finally got some minutes, and he looked good out there. The Clippers posted about him on their Instagram page. So I don't know if that's going to lead to more minutes in this matchup against Utah. It's kind of still the unknown for me for the Clippers, but they have a lot of potential. But I would like to see this game play out first before I can trust any of them other than Kawhi and Paul George. Really, how about you?
Yeah, and with Ibaka probably missing the next 2 games, expected to, I think we could look at Zubats now that we are out of that previous matchup. Zubats should play a little bit more. I can't imagine they're going to go super small against Gobert. They could try.
Well, Zubats can't do nothing against Gobert.
I mean, he's the only size that they have without Ibaka.
That's true.
Him or Cousins, and they're really not playing Cousins at all. So I think Zubats has to play a little bit, and I don't mind throwing 3,500. That's just super cheap. And Terrence Mann, you mentioned, I think he's firmly in the rotation no matter the opponent at this stage, especially without Ibaka. There's just extra minutes throughout the rotation. And this kid's been playing really well, and they played much better when they put him in the game for longer stretches. So I think he cemented himself into the lineup, and at 3,300, another guy that will make my lineup, especially if I want to just stack some stars and stack the higher price guys. There's no one in the Super Saiyan. I guess we can say Embiid is 10K, so he's in the Super Saiyan territory. But we can get a couple of those guys because there are a few guys under the 4K mark that are solid. And then the last guy that I'm looking at, Pat Bev. I know you mentioned him, the Chihuahua, as I call him. He got exposed in the last series. He was way too small for Luka, and Luka just if he's not playing good defense, there is no point for Patrick Beverley in the lineup. But now we don't have Luka. We don't have a guy of his size and his caliber. Donovan Mitchell's good, but he's not as big as Luka. Mike Conley, obviously not as big either. Patrick Beverley's probably going to be playing more minutes in this series like he started off in the Dallas series before they decided, okay, we got to switch things up. I think he gets back into that high teens, low 20s type role, and at bare minimum, I don't mind taking some shots at that. Obviously, the upside is not great, but for another bare minimum guy that I doubt will have any ownership because people are going to look at the last 3 games. He didn't even play in one of them, but they're going to look at most of the last games and say, okay, he barely suited up. He saw 11 minutes in the last 4 games. Do we even want to look at him? But I think he's going to be playing double that, and I don't mind taking some shots at him because this series he can play against Conley. He can guard Jordan Clarkson. He can guard Mitchell, and you don't need Kawhi and Paul George to exert all their energy guarding those guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's a risky play, but you made a great point. Not many people will have him in their lineup. It's just, I don't know if he fell out of favor with the team and they're just going to roll with Reggie Jackson, or, if they're going to bring Pat Bev back. So for me, I would want to see this first game before I spend a lot of cash on this game, but, it could go either way.
He's just obviously he's a dart throw. He's not a great fantasy producer anyway when he does play, but another option at 3K if you really wanted to just get as many higher price guys as possible, because they do have. I would prefer Terrence Mann anyway for a couple hundred extra, but he's still there, and Zubats there. They have a few guys that I don't mind going to super cheap here.
Do you feel the same about Rondo at 3,800? You feel better with Bev?
And a little bit, but I'm not sure. He's one that I would rather see on. I think he's better than Beverly anyway, but Beverly just has that perception, and he was in the starting lineup for the majority of the year when he was healthy. So, I kind of don't mind Rondo, but for $800 extra, I don't want to force him in there.
That's a great point.
All right, man. We'll flip on over to the Jazz side of the ball. I'll take this one. The guy that I really want to play here, and for me, it probably depends on Mike Conley. Because if Mike Conley doesn't play, then you got some options. We know that his usage will spread out to Jingle all the way, Clarkson, Mitchell. They'll all get extra shots, more ball handling responsibility, more playmaking. So they all get a little bump for me. If Conley does play, they all slightly get the opposite, just back to normal. But I think the safest guy here for me is Rudy Gobert. I mentioned before. Without Ibaka, Zubac is the only size that they have. Zubac and Cousins, who doesn't see the floor. You can continue to try and do the Marcus Morris and get Gobert out of the paint and try and do that, play really small. But that's really going to kill them on the offensive glass. They don't have Porzingis trying to be whatever he was doing. They don't have Maxi Kleba, not really physical. If you go super, super small against Rudy Gobert, he's going to be super physical back, and he's going to gobble up rebounds. So at 7,900, I really like him here. You mentioned Embiid, and you love him at center. I think if you don't want to spend up that high, the $2,100 savings and taking Gobert is like super easy call for me. I think 15 rebounds should be his minimum. And then hopefully he can get 15-plus points because that's where the real money will kick in there. Outside of that, again, it's probably going to depend on Conley and if he's healthy or not. If he's out, like I said, Jingles, Mitchell, Clarkson, don't mind taking shots at them. They get a little bit of extra value there. If he's in, I'll probably stick to I wouldn't mind playing him if he's ready to go a full complement of minutes at 7,300. But I'll decide exactly what his role is going to be and how many minutes he's going to play and all that, because I don't mind taking another shot at Mitchell. This kid's ready to go, and I think he's ready for this stage. So not a bad price tag, but Jordan Clarkson probably becomes a really, really solid play with no Mike Conley at 5,800.
Yeah, that's totally true. So we have to see if Conley plays. It's unfortunate he's injured at this time, especially going into this matchup. He's been waiting his whole career for an opportunity like this. But we'll see if he plays or not. But, yeah, I love Donovan Mitchell. He's one of my favorite plays of the night because, especially if Conley is out, when you're thinking about offense for Utah, he's going to have to be the one to, put it up. The team goes, where he goes pretty much. Everyone else is a secondary player, and his show is his show. So at 8,200, he's not in the 9,000s. I think that's a great price point for him. And, he's liable to get you 50 points at any given night. He had 57 last game. In real life, he hasn't scored less than 25 points in the playoffs. And sneakily, he's been getting a lot more assists than he normally averages. His last two games, 5, 8, and then 10 assists. So I think that's a great play. Great call on Rudy Gobert. That is a great point because he's going against no one on the other end. And when he is going against someone, it's going to be Ivica Zubac, who is slow and not a great defender. He's not going to out-hustle or rebound Rudy Gobert. So that is a great call. If you can't get Embiid, that's a great point. Conley is at 7,300. I would have to think even if he does play, he'll be limited. So that's just a wait and see. You can look at Bogdan Bogdanovic if Conley doesn't play also. He can get you in the 30s as far as drafting points. Great call on Clarkson also if Conley doesn't play. And sneakily, you can also look at Royce O'Neal at 5,100. He's been very consistent and a safe ceiling, safe floor for him, at the price point of 5,100.
I like it. All right, man. I feel like the Clippers probably have the best super cheap options on the slate, and in total. So they have quite a couple guys that you can go to, but they're not super safe. Also, obviously, if you're digging in the bargain bin, they're not always going to be safe. But
right.
Yeah. And then before we get out, again, we'll jump on over to our player tiers. I will let you go first with the expensive tier. I think you might have alluded to it, but who is your favorite spend up of the night?
Over 8,000?
Yep, over 8K.
See, this is tough, but I will have to go with my guy Donovan Mitchell at 8,200 just because I think it's necessary, and he's been playing so great so far. We'll see if they, try to put the clamps on him, but I think he'll have a great game. How about you?
Awesome, and my favorite spend up of the night is right next to him, Ben Simmons at 8,100. I think you get a discount from the other guys, and I just see a triple-double incoming against Trae Young's defense. They lost the first game. He only had 4 rebounds, which is atypical of him. But that 3 of 10, I know he's a bad free throw shooter. I expect that to improve a little bit, not 30%, maybe 50, 60%. And then I expect the rebounds to go up and everything else to stay the same. And right there, that's over 50 points if that happens. Great value for me.
I like it.
Let's go in the mid-tier, man. Who are you liking in the 7-9 to 5K range?
I'm going to have to go with Bogdan Bogdanovic at 6,800 just because he's been playing great all playoff series so far in all 5 games he's been in. And his last game being his best, which was against Philadelphia, who they're playing against right now. So I think he's coming into his own. Very safe play and potential for more. How about you?
I like it. And I'm going to go with Rudy. For all the reasons I mentioned before, Ed, and you mentioned,
Rudy Gay?
I mean, oh, you got me. Again, Rudy Gobert. I'm going to go with Gobert on this one at 7-9, just making the cut. But there really is no matchup on the other side that can get rid of him. And I think he's too athletic to succumb to getting beaten on a small ball lineup with Marcus Morris out there.
Yep, I agree.
All right, man. And who is your favorite value play? So anything under 5K here.
I have circled down, could be your guy, but Terrence Mann at 3,300, just because his youth and exuberance, what he can bring to the Clippers, I think they're going to need it, a little burst of offense. So especially if Beverly and Rondo are on the bench, they're going to have Mann out there. So 3,300 is a good price for him.
I like it. And I like the exuberance that you brought in that. All right. Now that's probably who I was going to go with. Super cheap. They're a guy that you can just throw in. Now I will slide up a little bit and go towards the top. It is a guy I glanced over at first because I wasn't sure if he was going to play, but after you talked about it, I thought, okay, he probably will play. He's been playing a lot lately, and that's DeAndre Hunter, 4,100. Assuming he plays again, or he didn't play against Philly, but I would expect him back. If he doesn't play, I would just flip it on over to Herter at 4,300. But if Hunter can't play and he can play his 30 minutes like he was playing against New York, I think rock solid value to be found. If he doesn't play, him and Gallo get the boost and they're right next to him in price at 42, 43. He'd probably take more chances at Herter, but we'll see. He missed the first game against Philly, so I didn't think he was going to play, but maybe he's closer than I was assuming. We'll see.
Yeah, you also can mention, Matisse Thybulle at 3,200. Possibility also. I
think he should be playing 20-something minutes in this one.
Yeah.
All right, man. And that does it for our 2-game slate. We have a game 2 and a game 1. But before we head on out of here, is there anything else that you want to say?
I just hope the games are competitive, and I appreciate you for listening. If you want to hear more banter from me and Santino arguing, going back and forth with each other on Twitter, make sure you follow over Dennis Schroeder. Follow us on Twitter. Mine is at William is Bill.
Oh my gosh. No, I was just looking at the score. I know we came on here towards the end of the third quarter, but they wound up losing by 39. The Brooklyn still outscored them by 9 in the fourth quarter. That's just embarrassing. That's they outscored them. Oh my gosh. All right, I lost track, and you can find me on Twitter.
He wasn't even listening to me, guys.
I was listening to you. We were talking about Dennis Schroeder on Twitter, but you could follow me on at Santino Cacone. If you want to give us a rate review, tell us what you like, what you don't like on our podcast. Go do that wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow all of our Hoopball accounts on Twitter, on Instagram. I can't remember if we have a Facebook, but on Facebook if we do. And all that good stuff. And as always, thank you guys for listening. Will's obnoxious. We will catch you again tomorrow. I believe it's Keith and possibly Mike. Mike's been transitioning to moving cross country, so been a little bit busy lately. I'm not sure if he'll be on or not, but we'll see. But yeah, thank you guys again for joining in and tuning in and listening, and we will catch you again.
Thank you for showing up, Santino. After your Lakers got eliminated, I didn't know if you were going to make it to the show.
Yeah, they I mean, without Anthony Davis, I didn't expect him to win anyway. But It is what it is.
It is what it is.
All right. Take care.
Peace.
Hornets suck.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.